CNN has learned that the UN Security Council will discuss the humanitarian situation in Ethiopia's Tigray region in a closed-door meeting on Thursday. The leader of Tigray's forces accuses the federal government and its Eritrean allies of genocide and other crimes against humanity. Well, the US State Department says Secretary of State Anthony Blinken expressed America's concern over the allegations when he spoke with Ethiopia's Prime Minister earlier this week. Well, a months-long CNN investigation has uncovered detailed evidence of the massacre of dozens of civilians in the Tigray region of northern Ethiopia, overcoming the information blockade around a pattern of atrocities that may have claimed thousands of civilian lives. Since November, the Ethiopian government has waged war on the Tigray region with assistance from neighbouring troops from Eritrea. Journalists have been severely restricted in their access, but in this exclusive report, CNN has been able to speak with dozens of people who say they witnessed a massacre at the hands of invading Eritrean troops in a town in Tigray on one of the holiest days on November the 30th last year. And I have to warn you, what you are about to see and hear is disturbing. Here's CNN's Nimel Begir.
A bloody jacket, some rope used to tie the victims, shoes worn by a Sunday schoolboy. The haunting remnants of a brutal massacre in a village in northern Ethiopia's Tigray region. A massacre perpetrated by Eritrean soldiers on Ethiopian soil. 52 out of the 54 pictures you see here are victims whose identities have been verified by CNN. This is the village of Mariam Dengalat, where CNN's investigation uncovered the murder of dozens, possibly even more than 100 civilians. Witnesses tell CNN people were murdered here over 3 days of mayhem. With video and communication limited due to an Ethiopian government-imposed blackout on the region and fear of government retribution rife, CNN has had to illustrate witness testimony through animation and use of actors' voices to describe what happened in December last year. One eyewitness, Marta, not her real name, told CNN they were returning from morning church service. When they got home, they were confronted by Eritrean troops.
They came to our house, then they told us to get out. There were a lot of soldiers outside, and they were saying, come out, you bitch. We said, we are civilian, showing our IDs. They didn't ask any question, they just opened fire.
To understand what happened here over the course of these 3 days, you need to understand what's been happening over the last few years in Ethiopia. Under the country's former rulers, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, Ethiopia waged hostilities with Eritrea for the TPLF's almost 30 years in power. Ethiopia's President Abiy Ahmed won a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing all that to an end. The Tigray region has always been distinct in culture and language, and its leadership is battling for autonomy from Ethiopia's government. Now the two former enemies stand accused of working together to crush Tigray's fight for autonomy. And civilians are being killed in what could be war crimes, and something the ousted Tigray leader described as acts of genocide. This video was secretly taken and smuggled out to CNN to avoid Ethiopian and Eritrean troops. It's footage of the graves that eyewitnesses described to CNN in harrowing testimony. Underneath the branches and sticks are the grave sites for the victims. Another eyewitness, Abraham, again not his real name, was supposed to help clean the church at Mariam Dengalat before the festival. Instead, he became a gravedigger.
They were all so young, and they took them and killed them together in a field.
Among those he buried were 24 Sunday school children. Abraham and others registered the kids' names as best they could. One by one, the shallow graves were uncovered, and parents came to identify their children. Some were so badly disfigured they could only be identified by their clothing. This is not the only massacre perpetrated in Tigray. Using satellite images and interviews with witnesses, Amnesty was able to find evidence of at least one other separate massacre involving hundreds of civilians, believed to be carried out in another city days earlier. A day after the investigations by CNN and Amnesty International, U.S. Secretary of State Blinken said those responsible for them must be held accountable. Strong words, but will words be enough when the crimes described bear all the hallmarks of a possible genocide? Na'am al-Baghir, CNN.
Well, CNN put the findings of its investigation to the governments of Ethiopia and Eritrea, along with the TPLF. In response to a U.S. statement, the Ethiopian government responded that it is, quote, fully committed to undertake thorough investigations of alleged human rights abuses, while adding that it found U.S. comments on Ethiopian internal affairs regrettable and that its forces were conducting lawful operations. The TPLF said its forces were not in the vicinity of Dengelakt before or after the massacre and called for a UN investigation to hold all sides accountable for atrocities committed during the conflict. As we said earlier, the UN Security Council will discuss the ongoing situation behind closed doors on Thursday. We will monitor that. The Eritrean government has not responded to CNN's requests for comment. On Friday, the government vehemently denied its soldiers had committed atrocities during another massacre in Tigray, reported by Amnesty International. We have been reporting on this story as best we can now for months, and we will continue to do so.